All right. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great.
Are you
I'm
ready for this?
great.
So this,
Honestly, I'm great considering I had a blowout at Casa Bonita last night.
uh-huh. How was it? When you say blowout, what do you mean?
Suppose you could take that in a number of different ways.
Well, you did the same Mexican food restaurant
It
names.
is Mexican. It is Mexican food, so that's fair. That's
Uh-huh.
fair. No, so Casa Bonita, the long standing, well, was long standing iconic restaurant in West Denver, uh, often cited in South Park.
Ah, okay.
That's how most people around the globe or around the country know
Right.
about it. But yes, it is an actual restaurant. There were chains. I
Mhm.
think there were some in like maybe Oklahoma and maybe like
Why
Arkansas or
did you have
something.
one in Phoenix? Because it sounded so familiar when you said it.
Yeah, well, the last remaining one was in Denver.
Okay.
And they were going to close it. I guess they did close it like in 2020,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
Um, and the creators of South Park, Trey, Matt Stone and Trey, I can't remember his last name,
Yeah.
they decided to buy it. So they're
Okay.
from Colorado. And in fact, one of them grew up and went to the high school that's like literally within a
Oh,
stone's throw of my
wow.
house.
Wow. Okay.
But they went to University of Colorado. I think that's where they met and started that cartoon. Anyway, obviously they must have grown up going to Casa Bonita because they have infused so many of their episodes with like loving mockery, if you will,
Right,
of
right.
Casa
Which they
Bonita.
do with
Anyway,
everything.
so when it closed down, they decided to buy it.
Okay.
And what you need to know about Casa Bonita, those of you listeners who are not familiar with Casa Bonita,
Mhm.
the
I would be one of
food
them.
the food had just really gone downhill, and like it was almost like of legend. Like we
Mm.
went to Casa Bonita, it's like, how sick did you get?
Ah,
Like
okay.
so bad, like inedible, like barely fit for human consumption.
Yeah.
And so they partnered with I don't know her name, but she is a chef, and she's had a lot of accolades. Maybe she's a Michelin star, I don't know, but she opened a place called Super Mega Bien here in
Okay.
Denver. They partnered with her, and she's been like the back of the house, kitchen, menu, all of it. So anyway, they reopened. They had a grand reopening,
Okay.
and you could submit your email and be entered into a lottery system. And if you get picked, you get to bring up to 8 guests.
Okay.
And so one of my neighbors got picked.
Nice.
So we were on her short list, thank
Uh-huh.
goodness, because
Woohoo.
my name, when I registered, has yet to be called. Um, so this may be the only way I'm getting in. So anyway, we went last night with a group. There were 7 of us, and it is the kitschiest thing you've ever seen. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So you
Yeah.
go in, you give your order. It's like almost like dinner meets amusement park.
Ah, okay. All right.
Literally, like the way you order up at like a window, and there's a whole bunch of windows all lined up, and it's
Okay.
literally like going to an amusement park.
Oh,
So then
wow. Okay.
you go and you go through this little slotted line, and then they plate your food and put it on a tray, and then you walk up these crazy ramps to your
Oh,
destination to
wow.
sit and eat.
Okay.
As you're walking through, I'm walking through and taking notice. I'm like, oh, check. They still have the divers,
Mhm.
right? So there's like a
Okay.
dive tank thing.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
So
So yeah.
anything possible to attract attention and guests.
Oh
Okay.
yes, yes, yes. We walked by and we saw like the gorilla. The gorilla happened to be wearing a pig nose last night, which was very, very interesting touch.
Okay. Hmm.
Um, they still have the mariachi band. So as we were
Okay.
walking up, we walked past the mariachi band,
Yeah.
and they happened to sit us down, and we were next to one of 8
Okay.
balloon artists.
Oh,
And these
wow.
balloons were
Oh, wow.
phenomenal. They had lights in them and faces on them, and they were very intricate and they were very
Wow.
cool.
Wow.
Yes.
So they took everything to the next level.
Oh, but that's how Casa Bonita has always been. The problem
Okay.
is the
Okay.
food was disgusting,
Uh-huh.
and it was kind of disgusting over
Yeah.
time. Like it just
Yeah.
had gotten really run down and kind of gross. So last night it was like, wow, they kept all the kitsch, but they just like tore everything that was old up.
Yeah.
got the newest version of it and put it right back down. It looks so similar to the old.
Oh, wow. So which is fun, right? Because that's why everyone's going back.
Well, the true test was the food, right?
Okay.
Because I think that's what ended up repelling most people.
Right, right.
It was pretty good.
Really? All
It
right.
wasn't like my favorite Mexican.
Uh-huh.
Like if I'm craving like birria tacos or chimichanga, like I ain't going there.
Hmm.
But it was pretty good. Like I would eat that food again.
Nice, nice. And I heard sopapillas.
Oh yes. Yeah, Casa Bonita is, there's no trip to Casa Bonita if you don't have the sopapillas. So yes, apparently they kept the original recipe
Mhm.
and they were good.
But they cleaned out the fryers, so they're tasty again.
They cleaned out the fryers. They
Nice.
did. And then we went to, the little arcade and the puppet
Uh-huh.
show. And then we went through Blackbird's hideout and we were in the shooting gallery and got sprayed by a skunk. It was great.
Oh, nice, but a fake skunk.
Fake skunk, but it was a surprise. We're like,
Wow.
whoa.
Okay. Oh, wow. So was there a skunk in the original?
I don't remember the skunk in the original.
All right. Okay. So Casa Bonitas, there's fun for everyone.
Yes, if you can't have fun in Casa Bonita, you cannot have fun.
Oh my God, that's great. All right. Well, we have to go there. So
I'm hoping we do something for work. I'm hoping
yeah,
we somehow get like a work activity there.
that would be fun. That would be very
Yeah,
fun.
if you come to Denver, you have to go to Casa Bonita. Like that is a rite of passage.
Okay. Well, I've been going to Denver for like what, the last 4 or 5 years now.
Well,
So
you haven't really been to Denver unless
apparently
you've been to
not.
Casa Bonita.
Okay.
So I did have 2 margaritas
Uh-huh.
last night, in addition
Okay.
to a beer pregame. So
Okay.
yeah, I had a little cranial
That was
discomfort, still
Mhm.
feeling a little bit dehydrated. So I might not be 100%, but
But you're here. But
I'm
you're
here.
here.
85% is good.
Hey, you know what? Your 85% is probably most people's like 120.
Oh, thank you for that. But I felt like being at 85% is still worth at least being on because I get to
Yeah.
share the Casa Bonita story.
Yes.
I'm one of the early
Yes. That's
entrants in.
like
So,
that's gonna be fun because this is the first, so this is the fourth version of our, I guess, show, for lack of a better term. Right.
mhm.
So our thought was podcast, YouTube, video channel thing. And this is the fourth one we've done, but this is the first one we're actually posting and sharing with other people. We've been so impressed with our own work that we thought it was time to share.
Well, hopefully they don't all like people just like it doesn't go viral because of my off the cuff review of Casa Bonita that people
Hey,
just highly don't agree with. But we'll
we'll,
see.
we'll take it, right? We'll take it.
I'll take it.
As long
I'll
as they
take it.
stay and listen to the rest of it too.
You don't agree with my review of Casa Bonita? Write your own.
Right.
Let's go up
Exactly.
against one another. Let's see.
So let's see
But
what
I will say,
Good.
I would go back. I hope we can take the team back. I think it would be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, we know what our next outing is for work. That's perfect. And if not, you and I can go. Does that sound good?
It's worth it.
All right. I'm in. I like Mexican food and I like kitsch.
Oh, it's got kitchen spades.
Good. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, and so let's see if we could figure out how to segue that into some of the topics that you and I have talked about. So Casa Bonita, it suffered a death of sorts, and then it had a rebirth. And so that was one of the topics we talked about, right? Like I was sharing that I had gone to Chicago with my 2 younger boys, and we went to the Field Museum, and they had a whole display or whole exhibit on death. So that was one
Oh,
of our
that's
topics.
right.
That was one of our topics we talked about. And then I also celebrate my birthday. So I'm creeping closer and closer to 50, which is freaking me the hell out. And then the other part of that was that this idea that as I approach 50, I still have a couple more years before I get there, that I'm going to intentionally take this time to prepare for that and radically change my life. We're changing everything. I think about things, how I see things, and that's part of what we talk about here, right? Is this idea that how we've arrived at where we are in our lives is largely due to unconscious and unintentional navigation of how we have seen the world. So the structures we've had, the belief systems we've had, the value systems we've had, most of that has been handed to us from generations, culturally, socioeconomically, geographically, And we just kind of end up where we are and we believe what we believe and never really consider, well, how did I get here? And who the hell am I, right? How the hell did I get here? And is this really what I want for myself and for my life? So that was one of the topics that we talked about. And then the other one that I kind of snuck in because you and I were talking and was the 6 phases of feminine energy. So that was medicine woman, mother, lover, warrior, dark goddess, and mystic. So those are some of the things that we might talk about today.
It's a dark goddess.
Oh, well, so here's the thing. As I was going through them, I thought, holy crap, that is me. And here are a couple of things as to why I think it is me. One, my lie behind the lie. You and I ever talked about the lie behind the lie?
Doesn't sound familiar.
So what is the lie that I tell myself in order to hide myself from me? And what is
Why
the
haven't we
lie
talked
I'm
about this
hiding,
before?
right? I know it's a fascinating topic. And what is the lie I'm hiding, right? So I tell myself a lie of, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, the good girl, right? We're raised to be good girls, to listen, to do what we're told. You don't want to be a bitch. You don't want to be the nag. You don't want to be the troublemaker. You don't want to blow shit up. Right. And it's funny because I've had friends often tell me and family often tell me, you kill people with kindness. Not that I'm killing them with kindness, but I kill them kindly and kind of destroy some of the belief systems they have about things, but nicely. I do it nicely. So this idea that I do tend to blow shit up, and blowing shit up, a lot of that comes with why. Well, why do we think that? And why do we believe that? And why are we doing it that way? And is that the best way to do it? So the lie that I have always told myself is I don't blow things up. I'm diplomatic and I'm kind and let's figure out how to make this happen. But the truth of the matter, in the end, we're still blowing shit up.
Yeah.
That's what the dark goddess does. She blows crap up so that the real us who we're really meant to be end up here and come into being, right? So you and I talked about what I was thinking you were, the warrior, right? Because you know how to stand in your truth and you know how to, and even when the rest of the world is like running around in chaos and saying, we need to do this, we need to do that. You're like, no, this is what we agreed on. This is what we decided to do. And this is what we're going to go forward and do. And here's how we go do that. So those are some of the things we've talked about. So which one do you want to play with first?
I mean, warrior feels like, yes, an obvious identifier for me. I'm like, I did not know dark goddess was a thing. I'm like
Right?
very interested in this.
I know, me too. I am too. So I don't know if you've ever heard of rewilding women. It's
No.
it's a podcast, and it's a podcast. I think she has a YouTube channel. I know she does workshops. Her name is Sabrina Lynn, and she does this magnificent like sharing of all that is feminine, right? Like the female energy. She's into astrology and all of that. So a lot of things that we in the work world that we've been in, I've largely been told, you don't go there, don't stand there, don't go over there. That's weird. That's this, that's that. But the truth of the matter is we're also very attracted to it for obvious reasons. There is a part of us that is that and is connected to that and is seeking that out. So I'm with you. I wanted to learn more about it. And when I heard and read about dark goddess, which is Kali, I think that's the destroyer, right? Like come in and blow up. But there is a power in that. And it's not about blowing things up for the sake of blowing things up, but it's a breaking down of in order for what is meant to be to come into being. And so I've just started playing with some of these concepts and listening to some of her videos, but they're really, really cool.
Does she ever like make the analogy between that and like Hawaii volcanoes, right?
Ooh,
So they like
yeah.
blow things up, right? But think about like once, oh no, drop in water. But once, like, so think about like how that gives rise to these lush, tropical, like beautiful things afterwards,
Yeah.
right? Like that blowing up and release of energy and magma and heat that breaks things down, right?
Yep.
through
absolutely.
all of that heat and energy, then gives rise to these lush tropical jungles afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have not heard her refer to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if she does, because you're absolutely right. That that blowing up, that explosion, that release, because the volcanic fields are create some of the best wine country too, right? And we know, and if you think about Hawaii and all of the volcanoes there, it's gorgeous. It's green, it's lush, it's full of life. But first, it was destroyed, right? There was a destruction that had to happen in order to create place and space for all of that new growth, that new birth to come into being. So yeah, it's a great analogy. It's a really good analogy.
Seems obvious to me,
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah.
yeah, so I love that. And you are a kill with kindness, but you are killing the old to give birth to the new.
Right. And it's something I always was like, not quite offended, but like, oh, what do you mean by that? And
Oh
then,
yeah, because it totally challenges the nice girl paradigm.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I had a really hard time with that. And you and I have a mutual executive coach that we love. And I remember her telling me, she said, what are you afraid of? And I'm like, well, I'm afraid of being seen as a bitch, right? Like, aren't all of us women? Like, if we're going to be strong and we're going to be, you know, assertive, that we come off as being a bitch or being bitchy. And she's like, oh, I want you to go home and take a bitch bath. just wallow in that. And I'm like, wow, I never thought about owning it and what owning it could mean, because we're always taught, don't do that. You should be nice. You should be polite. I have a neighbor of mine that said, well, ladies don't swear. I'm like, well, this one
No,
does.
like I'm a lady, last I checked, and I swear. So
Yeah,
put that in your pipe and smoke it.
right. Exactly. As if somehow we get some reward or award for being seen as, pristine and, unsoiled. I'm like, has anyone been through
Boy, there's a lot of patriarchy
right?
put on that. Oof. No,
Well, and
no.
that's
Did you?
another one of the things we talked about too, was right, the patriarchy and what the
Yes.
hell.
But it reminds me, and maybe we've talked about this before, um, Taylor Swift's documentary. I can't remember what it's called. So like Miss Americana or Miss
Yeah,
something,
yes, yes. I think I
congeniality,
remember
something,
you
I don't remember.
talking about this. Yeah, yes,
But
keep going.
she talks about how as girls, young women, and adult women, we have been kind of brought along to kind of, she calls it get the good girl pats on the head,
Absolutely. Yep.
right? And that she thought that like that's what she should be doing. And she kind of like lived her life to get the good girl pats on the head, the good girl pats on the head. So she was living her life for everybody else's approval of what
Mhm.
they thought fit in this like nice little girl box.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really took her, some time in her mid 20s to
Mhm.
figure out like, this is not who I want to be and what I want to do.
Right, right.
And so you saw her, and I think we always think about Taylor Swift like writing these like, you know, invective lyrics, around like the last boyfriend that,
Uh-huh.
dumped her, or
Yeah.
she dumped her or whatever. And some of that's true, but I think, for her to really live a life that kind of like says, I'm going to do it my way and screw the rest of you,
Right.
outside of her lyrics, like she had a long way to go, it sounds like. So, it's a really great documentary. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
I'll have to watch that. No, I haven't seen it. And it's interesting because if you watch how her music has evolved, over time, it's shifted and changed quite a bit. And I don't think that her journey, it's been more visible than many of our journeys, but I don't know
Mm,
that it's that different from so many of us. I remember getting to the point in my life where I realized that I had outgrown my marriage and what that looked like and what that meant. And this terrifying fear or recognition that I'd lived my entire life trying not to make mistakes. And
oh yeah.
that in the end, that didn't lead me to anywhere good. And it wasn't until I was willing to screw up and make mistakes. And let's think about, what do we mean when we say screw up or make mistakes? It means making a decision that maybe someone else might not approve of. So I have gone
Right.
through my whole life making decisions based on who the people in my little sphere of influence might look at me, pat me on the head and say, way to go, good job, good job. You stayed in your marriage and you did what you should do and you raised your kids and, you put yourself last. And in
Good
the,
girl.
here's the thing, here's the shock to me. Damn, that feels gross, right? But we're conditioned to believe that that feels good and that
Yeah.
that's what we want and that's what we're looking for. But I also recognized in conversations with other women that I had to overcome that natural knee-jerk reaction to want to defend myself to them when they said, well, you're not being very whatever, fill in the blank. Well,
You're
no,
not
I guess
being
not. I'm
very
being
ladylike,
uniquely right, right? Yes. Well, let me tell you, there's lots of different ways to be a lady.
isn't there?
Yes. So yes, yes. So that is how do we, so part of that, and you and I had this conversation, what was it, yesterday, and or maybe the day before, and I asked, how is it that we watch our family, the generations before us, make what we look and think of as those, I don't want to live my life like that. I am not going to be that woman. I am not going to be in that type of relationship. And we end up making very similar choices.
Yeah, I was thinking about this today.
Mhm.
I don't know why it caught me, but it just did. I don't know what triggered it, but it is bizarre and strange in some ways. Like, I don't know about you, but as a young girl, like I got a lot of messages around, and I think this is true today, as I observed it. You can do anything. You're just as good as a boy. You can do anything. But the way that we're treated
Right. Yep.
is not the same.
No.
And so you have this like gap between like what your message from your father, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Around like you can do anything, you're super smart, you're super capable, you can make it on your own, you don't need a man, like all
Mm.
of that stuff I've heard.
Yep.
But then we get in, and so we have these expectations as young women, as teenagers, like coming into the world and being on equal footing with boys,
Right. Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And then we're like this, you have this idea in your head, but you're like this frog in the water that's just getting turned up, turned up, turned up. And before you know, you're like, hold on, what kind of patriarchal marriage am I finding myself in 20 years later? I thought that I was on equal footing.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like, what is that? What is happening? And is it because there is this undercurrent of we see the dynamics between our parents? And
Mhm.
so even though dad is saying one thing to us, we're observing this treatment of mom in him, this dynamic.
Yep.
And even though in our logic minds, we go into the world like, I can do anything and I can make the money and I can blah, blah, we get ourselves into relationships that then mimic the
Mhm.
way that our dads treated moms
Yes.
and
I
mom reacted.
right. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right because that was, and I just had this conversation with another friend of mine to say, we do not, our children, as parents, our children are not listening to anything we say. They are watching what we do. And we did the same thing, right? We heard what our parents said, but the way we embody what is happening is by watching what they do, right? We are subconsciously picking up and mimicking. The way we learn as humans is not to hear what they're saying. That's just a piece of the puzzle. And if you're hearing it, but everything you're seeing, everything you're feeling, everything that's getting reflected back at you as you make these choices and navigate the world, telling you to get back in your place, then how could we try to live the world according to what we were told? Because that's not what we've been shown, right?
Insane. It makes me think like we're just a bunch of zombies. Like
Right.
we're not really controlled by our conscious thoughts.
No,
We're
we're not.
controlled by this other like thing inside us where we might as well just like shut off that conscious thought. I mean, we shouldn't,
Right.
but like if if you don't understand it, you are basically being like guided by this, I don't even know what to describe it. It's this like raw, unfiltered, needy vessel.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and think about it from a human perspective, from a science perspective, right? How our brains function. One of the coolest things that the state of Arizona does, if you're going through divorce, not that divorce is cool, it's actually very difficult and hard, but also really creates a lot of growth opportunity, was we had to go through parenting classes. And one of the segments was all about how our brain reacts and processes what is happening to us, and the whole lizard brain. So when you say something, I get triggered and I immediately respond from that place of being triggered. And if we don't create space to pause and take in what has happened and allow our conscious mind to hear and respond to that, and to decide from an intentional place, how do I want this to go? Then we end up sounding like all those broken records that we have. And I think that that's what happens, right? We have so many records that play. We have records based on gender. We have records based on roles. We have records based on who we are in society and how we see ourselves in society.
Age.
Right. Age. Oh my gosh. Yes. Speaking of age earlier. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, how do I seek to define myself in this world when the world is trying to tell me I am all of these things or I am not all of these things? And it's hard because we are social beings, right? We are designed to want love, to need connection. And when the people that we are supposedly most loved by and most connected to, our families, are handing us these rule books and these thought structures that are completely outdated and completely useless now to who we are and where we are in the world today, we get very confused. Wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go conquer the world, but when I try to conquer the world, I'm told all these awful things about conquering the world, right? That it's not my place to conquer the world. Who do I think I am? And little girl, you are too big for your britches. Said who? All the people around us that we somehow think own the definition of who we are.
Ooh.
But they don't, right? We own that definition, but we don't know that. That's the terrible secret.
That's the secret.
Right? That's the secret no one wants us to know. And
it is incredible
for all of us, every single one of us. I don't care what gender or how you identify yourself or where you were raised in this world. Every single one of us owns the definition of who we are and who we want to be in this world. But we don't know that. We rely on everything outside of ourselves to tell us that and wonder why we're so damn unhappy.
No wonder. Yeah, it's a very progressive way of thinking, Christine.
See,
but
shit up.
You're blowing shit up. But once you understand that, right? Like you can then start to disable your lizard brain that's controlling you.
And it takes time and it takes effort. One of the things I'm struggling with is my body is still has been trained for almost 5 decades to respond in a very specific way to all sorts of external stimulus. And the way that is happening is it's not working for me anymore. I'm like, I have big plans of things I want to accomplish. And you freaking out every time I keep pushing outside my comfort zone is not working for me. We got to work on this. What the hell's going on here? So
is this the conversation you have with your body?
Yeah, this is me and my body talking. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, because, and that's the truth of the matter is we are human, right? I love the phrase of we're spiritual beings have a human experience, but we are living within the confines and the boundaries of our human bodies.
Yes, this whole skin suit that we got on.
Right? Exactly.
It does have an interplay with the spirit, right? Yes. There is this thing such as a psychosomatic response. So there is an interplay. You have, and in some ways, your body is like a early warning system.
Yes. But how often as women, especially, we've been taught to betray ourselves, to not listen to our bodies, to be told that you're this or that because you are not, your body does not feel good or safe or okay in the moment. And that is not serving the other person.
Or your body is not yours.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? That's a
Yeah,
big one too.
we have a lot of work to do on that piece as a
Yes.
society,
Right.
and women owning their own bodies.
Yes. 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 Oh, there's so many layers and so much opportunity, right? Because
Mhm.
we're able to start to dismantle this, we're able to change things going forward too. And it's not until we get to this point that we can even start that conversation.
And I guess I wonder, how do we take how how do we make this much more mainstream? Is
Mhm.
it not mainstream because we just haven't had the mediums in which to get like this kind of thought out in, until now, like where the internet and YouTube and the rest are like just ubiquitous, right?
Right.
Um, is it because there's a lack of readiness and
Mhm.
want, because the patriarchal legacy is pretty strong and a lot of things that we're saying are
Right.
not in alignment and don't uphold that?
Mhm.
um so, because it's not like some of these things are not actually new concepts. Like if you
Yeah.
go and read like some Marianne Williamson, I
Mhm.
can't Eckhart Tolle, like
Mhm. Yep.
they've been talking about this stuff for decades,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Long before, mass media was at the palm of our hands as creators, as individuals.
Yep.
So how do we think it's a matter of time because now we are able to be content creators as individuals, and that's
Mhm.
part of it? Or is there a bigger issue at hand in being able to get people to see themselves as these multidimensional beings that have
Right.
autonomy to
Mhm.
be able to be what they want?
Mhm.
And, if you can't do it in America, I don't know where you can.
Right, right. I think it's a couple of different things, right? So one, it is the internet has become the great equalizer, right? Where the level of gatekeepers has been diminished because of that. I can put content out now as anybody. I don't have to go through gatekeepers like publishers in order to be heard, right? So there's that. The other thing is too is that I can now hear anything. I don't have to, the information that's at our fingertips, our ability to find topics and understand so much more of our world is, I mean, this is the age of knowledge, right? Like this is, we've never seen it quite like this before. At the same time, it is also understanding, and I think I did a LinkedIn post on this, and I think we might have talked about this before, right? I am not the person who believes. I am not my beliefs, right? I am not my values. I am not my thoughts. I am the entity behind that who gets to choose what I believe and what I think and what I think I know. And it's not until I recognize the distance between that and know that, because as I get more information, as I learn more things, obviously any intelligent human being would expect to change their minds, right? I can see now, I've traveled around the globe. It is circular. I have to reassess. And now I believe the earth is round rather than flat, right? So I think it's part of that too, right? That we're getting to that point where we recognize that we are not, but we are tied. We've created identities tied to those beliefs and tied
Mm,
to those value systems. And that's, I think, why we get so angry with one another when you believe differently than me, because it truly threatens who I think I am. When if I'm an individual who can change my mind and change my beliefs based on what's coming in, then I'm not, my identity is not tied to that thought. And it's okay if you challenge that thought, because now we can have an intelligent conversation about it. But so there's a lot of that happening too, right? But then also the structures that we have for learning, for taking information in. If the structure itself is biased, or it is narrow-minded, then I can only see the box that I'm in. And I can't imagine outside of that box. So I think I think it's how we learn. I think it's how we take information in. I think it's what information we're exposed to and how we can take that information in. But I feel like there's this wonderful opportunity to dismantle all of that and create something so much more free-flowing and real and true in its place. But it's very scary because what is we like construct, we like pattern, we like things to be the same. We don't like change. We don't want to be challenged. That's hard work, right? I just want to sit and watch my Netflix show. I don't want to, and I know some people like that. I'm sure you do too.
I do. I definitely do. I think I am encouraged that it just feels like we are making bigger strides forward.
Yes.
And I think part of that is the technology piece. I think sometimes some of the folks are like, I just want to watch my Netflix because they don't have the capacity to think about change. And part of it is because the way that they have worked their lives into
Yes.
this, like, please, I can't take one more thing that challenges a construct.
Right.
I need to just be comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if you feel like you are constantly, whether it be from a number of outside pressures having to be a certain way, or it's years in being able to formulate your persona, I think both of those can put you in a place where you lack the capacity to even have a desire to try any of this on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that, and one of the things that I've been seeing is two things. One, a deeper and greater ability to be vulnerable with one another. And I think that is key. Our ability and willingness to open up to one another and to have conversations. I mean, I remember early in my adulthood when things were going south for me in my life personally, I really truly didn't have conversations with anyone about it. Those were things you did not discuss. So I think that there was this mentality, this mindset of you keep your shit to yourself and you just keep going on and you put a smile on and you can just keep moving. But I feel like there's, it's even with the same women in the same group of friends, there's a willingness to share and to talk and to be more open about what's happening, not from a point of complaining, but from a point of solutioning. And what I've seen is this deep desire to understand, why am I wounded? I recognize that I'm wounded. So many of us have gone through divorce. You don't go through a divorce and at least self-aware and not recognize that you had some part in it, right? That it could never just be the other person, that we arrived there through also fault of our own. And with that comes a level of self-awareness then to seek to understand that, right? So how did I arrive there? What in my upbringing helped bring me to this place? What in my belief system helped bring me to this place? And it feels like there's this deep interest in understanding our personal trauma and our generational trauma. And now there's science that backs that up, right? So what happened to my mother while I was in her womb can be passed down, right? This is a very real thing. We know that with those who've survived the Holocaust and went on to have families, like there is true, and it's in our DNA. So with that recognition comes an understanding of, how do I heal that? And what does my life look like on the other side of that healing? Because the old way doesn't work anymore. And so now I have to figure out and do something different.
Yeah, for those of us who are motivated and interested and seekers, I think this is like, ooh,
right?
New frontier, this is fun.
Yes.
How do you, I think about like health, it's not health belief model, but stages of change model. How do you take folks through this, right? In pre-contemplation to contemplation to planning and action. And like, I think there's some people that it would be highly threatening, right?
Yes.
Whether it's just because of the life you've constructed or the benefit that you get from the way society is constructed now.
Right. Yes. Well, and I don't know about you, but I know for me personally, I've really struggled with this. And even I would say this has been about a 10-year journey of trying to understand how am I, who am I, why am I, how do I be the best version of myself? And there are times, there are a lot of times where I'm like, can we just pause? Can we just stop right here? Can we just not have to peel another layer off? I just need a breather. Right. And this whole journey of self-development and growth and self-awareness, I need a breather. So, and I'm someone who's constantly seeking what's the next stage, what's the next level. So for those of us who might feel threatened by this, who don't want to change the status quo because it's serving us or because we feel it's too hard, that may not be something we're supposed to do this life either. But for those where we are feeling called to it, when we are feeling a dissonance in how I'm living my life and how I believe, how I feel I should be living my life, this is an opportunity. This time in our lives and in the world is an opportunity to start to do something about that. And those are the ones I think that we resonate with, we're talking to, like we are part of, right?
Sure. And so then to bring it full circle, then, there's this, like these constructs, right?
Yep.
Around understanding who we are and why we are. And, I've come at it really from even in, let me be a little more articulate, but I've come at it from a more of a professional development kind of, and then how does this then apply to my personal life?
Right.
Um, I've done, a few things that certainly seem to be a little more unilateral between professional and personal, but you've really come at it from kind of a very different perspective than I have. Like the archetypes, what were you calling it?
So
It's not an
feminine
archetype.
energy archetype. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
archetypes or
Okay.
faces. Yep.
Feminine energy. Like
Yeah.
I have not
Yeah. Yeah.
investigated any of that kind of stuff. So what else would you want, like, and maybe it bears like just explaining a little bit more about the different types of archetypes and what they mean, because I think, like, yes, it seems like I'm a warrior like on its face, but maybe not,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
you saw
Exactly.
like dark goddess, you're like, what is that? And it's like, turns
Right.
out it's you. So
Right. Right. Right.
so in the interplay between these things, because I tend to believe that we're not all just one thing.
Right.
We have
Yes.
like what's home base for us and what we tend to be and how we tend to show up in the world. That's
Right.
most consistent, but I think that we probably borrow from others as well.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I think and I think that's also why I love our conversations, right? Because we've come from the same goal from very different places in different ways. And that's what's so fascinating, what's so interesting to me about it. For me, I guess the way that I've looked at it is that I feel things before I can tell you what they mean from my mind, right? To be able to articulate it, right? So my son used to get so frustrated with me because he'd say, Mom, so I don't get to do that because you had a feeling about it. And I said, absolutely, because if you give me enough time, I will be able to articulate why I have that feeling, but I can't quite tell you right now. And you're asking for an answer right now. So the answer is no. And I've learned to trust myself, right? Empirical evidence is evidence that I have based on my own experiences in my life. And that is why I have set off on the path I have, because the experiences I've had in my life haven't necessarily been explained within the constructs that I was given from a traditional perspective. And so I seek them out to understand what is happening to me, what's going on here. But I've been with myself long enough to know I can trust what I feel and the sense that I get and the knowing that I have. And so for me, that's where some of these archetypes and energy types come in play, because I can feel things that I don't always know how to explain. So that's where I tend to live. Now you give me enough time, I can start to make connections. I can pull in the science that supports it. I can pull in enough other empirical evidence that supports it. But what I've learned is that there's something within me that is, and I believe it's my soul, right? Something within me guiding me to take the steps that I'm supposed to take. And so my goal has been, how do I connect with that more deeply? How do I understand that more deeply? And yeah, does that Make sense?
Well, it totally does. What resonates about it, and this is where I did have kind of like a little bit more of a, for lack of a better term, do not take this in a derogatory woo-woo kind of
No,
experience,
totally get it.
where it
Totally
came at
get
it
it.
from a
Right?
woo-woo.
Yeah.
So a former colleague of mine, she stopped me one day and she was like, "Hey, I need to tell you something. Can we go have like lunch?"
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Listen, this is going to sound super crazy and nuts." She
Mhm.
said, "But I have a gift where I can see onto the other side,"
Mhm.
meaning like past life, or not past life, but to the afterlife, I guess,
Okay.
and people that have passed on. And she said, every time I'm in a room with you, there are like 40 people that are like, "You need to tell her these things. You need to do this. You have to talk to her."
Mhm.
And she's like, it's making me crazy. And she
Mhm.
said, "So can we do a journey?" And so she's kind of like a shaman. So she comes at it through like this Native American
Yeah.
tradition. So I
Okay.
go to her house,
Mhm.
and she's got like this music on, and she covers her eyes and she's laying down. She's taking me through this whole thing. She said, and she's telling me all this stuff that was like, damn, I don't know how she could know any of this stuff, like intergenerational trauma that has
Right.
been handed down in my family.
Yeah.
Um, but she, at the end of it, said, all of us, like, she's a seer. She can see these
Mhm.
people show up and she can't stop seeing them. Like, she's
Mhm.
gotten better, she said, over the years, on like how to manage it. Um, so when something like this was happening when I was in the room, she's like, "I'm really good at managing this, but you're like, so like, I need to tell you all these things." So
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
said, but so I'm a seer. Some people are knowers. Some people can hear things.
Yes.
You are a knower.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm a knower. Sounds
Mhm.
like you're also a knower. Like, I just know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's not because it's the gospel according to how smart I am. It's just, I know. And it may
Very.
take me a minute to
Mhm.
be able to articulate this, and it may take me a week to articulate this, but regardless, I'm a
Yes.
knower, and I will know what I feel in my body. I trust it, and I know it is the right way forward.
Right. Yes. Yes.
You're a
And
knower.
that's exactly it, right? And I'm still trying to figure that out, because sometimes I feel things, sometimes I can see things, sometimes I just know things. I've had these conversations with my kids since they were little too, right? And that's just it. Like this, I've talked to too many people who've had these kinds of experiences. You may not be able to articulate to someone else why you know, but you have been with yourself long enough that you know what that means for you. And I believe that all of us have that, right? That is our inner self, our core, our essence trying to tell us this way or that way for a reason.
And so what to layer on top of that, and
Mhm.
I also sometimes struggle to like be able to articulate it, because
Mhm.
sometimes it's just so rich.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like so visceral.
Yes.
Um, and it kind of almost defies the logic mind.
Mhm.
But what Ayurveda or yoga would say to us is, that's because you're somewhat blocked in your throat chakra, and there's some sort of trauma to work out
Mhm.
so
Yes.
that you can be in your heart or throat center to be able to articulate.
Yes, and I would agree with you. That was one of the first exercises I did with my soul alignment coach 3 or 4 years ago. Was I had this visceral fear about sharing my inner thoughts. I've written books, I've done talks, I've taught, but for whatever reason, when it really got down to me sharing my thoughts and my feelings and my beliefs as I understand them now with a public, I would get terrified to the point where it just didn't make sense. I'm like, this does not make sense, that there's nothing in my life. I've gone back far enough. I don't understand where this is coming from. And we did a lot of work on that and releasing that trauma, releasing, whether you want to call it past life, whatever you want to call it, there was something very real blocking me. And as soon as that was done, it got easier and easier for me to share my thoughts, not to second guess myself, not to be afraid. But I still find, right? Like
Those
there's something,
tapes
right?
play.
It does. There's something in there. And I feel like it's this lifelong journey. And the other thing too that I've heard was, if this is what is blocking for you, if this is the hard part for you, there's a reason for that. because oftentimes when we overcome that, then we help others overcome that same thing. And that's part of our work here. So I think I love it. I knew it.
You are a
Remember,
knower.
right? I remember when I was talking, like, I feel like you and I can have this exchange and it's going to be really important and valuable and we're going to love it. I think other people are going to love it. So I'm like, I don't know where it came from or why, but yeah,
Here we are.
yep, here we are.
So I want to go back, and I don't know if you're able to kind of like chunk out like quickly, like what these is. I don't know if it's how my put 6 or 7 archetypes of feminine energy, because this is new news for me. Like if you wanted to talk about disc programming or Enneagram perhaps, or strength finders, or the list goes on. Sure, this is new. Like I feel like I've done so much.
Yeah.
This is new to me.
Right. Okay. So, and it's new to me too. So I just started the sessions this week. So I will bring more of this back for us to dig in and explore further. But just really quickly, they are the medicine woman or crone, right? This is the wise woman. This is the woman who knows how to use herbs and plants and knows how to heal and has this wisdom, this ageless wisdom about who and how we are in this world. Mother, right? Think about giving birth to creating. You've met women that you're like, oh, wow, total earth mother, right? Like they are nurturing and loving, and they just have all of this and they can create from that perspective. Then there is the lover, right? So think about us as lovers in our lives, right? Lovers of ourselves, lovers of another, and what that opens up for us and creates for us. So thinking romantic, thinking connectivity, thinking our own sexuality, and what does that look like and what does that mean? And what are the blockers that tend to happen in that realm, right? Then there's warrior, right? So this is that, like, even saying and thinking about it, right? The standing tall, you think about a warrior. One of my favorite images of warrior is from the Black Panther. And the women who are part of that army, I like just love it with the spear, and they're strong and they stand straight. And you just think, they give me chills every time I see them, right? That's the warrior. They stand in their truth. They know what is right. They know the difference between right and wrong, and they stand up for that. And then there's the dark goddess, right? So Kali is, the breaking down of the challenging, is that truly the way it is? Or is it the way that you have been taught to believe that it is? And truly being willing to break all of that down. And there's a relentlessness to her, right? That she is going to keep after it because she wants you to be your very best version of yourself. She knows who you're here to be. Right?
That very much sounds like you, Christine. But
Right.
why? But
Right.
why? But why? But why? Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Okay. Nope. But why?
Exactly. And anyone who knows me knows what you're talking about.
Yep.
And the last one, the 6th one, is the mystic. And the mystic is, so when you were talking about that, sometimes we know things, right? We can feel things in a visceral way. And there's such richness to it, like you said, that we can't even bring it forth, right? That the work of the mystic is to bring that forth, is to bring that creativity. So it's a deeper, more, I can't even think of the word, a deeper and more intangible bringing into being and birthing than, say, the mother. Right. This is the core of who we are and what we're here to do, and bringing that into being. So if you think about like a business, I could kind of see it in a business world, that the mystic would help voice the and help bring the business into being, because it becomes it's its own organism, right? But it's not a thing that you can touch and feel per se.
Right.
So that's kind of how I understood the mystic. So those are the 6.
Okay.
And apparently, like, there's lots of different variations of all of these, but these are like the big archetypes.
So what's interesting to me is I'm like, gosh, like I can see places where I think I dabble in. There's 3 that kind of stick out for me. Certainly warrior, but then also like medicine woman and mystic a little bit, because I'm like product is all about like bringing things
Totally
into
see
being,
that.
right? So
Yes,
those
yes,
are the three that kind of resonate a little bit for
yes.
me. But as I'm sitting there thinking about it, I'm thinking about like how, because that last one is a lot of what I'm doing right now in my professional life, which is
Right.
trying to bring new ideas and generate in this like expression of them, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
a process or how we talk about things or
Yeah.
an actual product or just a process. So it's and I think you and I both have
Hmm.
that. So,
Yeah.
your expression of it is slightly different than what I get paid to do to express it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, and I think that's part of why you, me, Jeff, and Jamie,
Hmm. Yeah.
we all share in the
Yeah.
mystic piece.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, but it's also causing me to think like, how much of this do we actually like? These are the feminine energies. How much of this are we actually bringing to our professional workplaces where it's necessary and needed? And then so the next question became, well, and my answer in my head was not enough,
Hmm.
right? And then the next thing was, well, what does the male archetypes look
Right.
like? I would love to see those and go, now how much of this is what's actually in the workplace?
Yes, yes. So that I love that you were thinking that too, because that was what kept coming up for me as well, was I want to understand what are the male versions of these energy types, because I feel as if we probably would recognize them if we saw them, but we don't necessarily have names for them. Like, what are the names for them? So I will take that upon myself to go find that out, because I was very curious about that as well. But that's part of that showing up as our full selves, right? That I'm not just being the version of me or the version of woman that you find acceptable, that I truly am bringing everything, because I am a lover, I am a warrior, I am the medicine woman, I am the mother, I am the dark goddess, I am mystic. We are all of these things. And the thing is too, is that men have we both have male and female energy within us, right? And one of the goals for us is to balance that energy, right? And we can see when someone is balanced too far one side or too far the other. And there's this great conversation taking place in the world right now about all of that.
Oh, isn't there?
Right? Right. So let's find out. Like, let's see what masculine looks like, because when you create space for them, when you allow them, and there's really good, wonderful, amazing energies that men bring to, that the male energy brings to any situation. And it's that much better when it's balanced beautifully with the female energy, right? When you bring those two pieces together, there you can bring something into the world. I mean, think about just how we are physically. You can bring something in the world you can't otherwise. So we really do need both of them.
Turns out.
Right? So
Yeah, I would
I'll find out
love
more.
to just like
Yeah.
compare like general workplace dynamics. A lot of workplaces they vary, but yeah. And I'm curious also, like, excuse me, late night at Casa Bonita.
Right?
Was how even for men, like if they dominate in some
Yes.
of these places, right?
Yes, 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 right. And I know for us too, like I went through a really great workshop that talked about the negative versions of the female energy. So victimhood,
Mm.
so that'd be the damsel in distress, the nagging woman, right? And I was amazed at.
God, you gotta have harlot in there at some point. You
Oh,
have
I'm
to have
sure there's,
that.
I'm sure there's that, I'm sure that's in there, right? And the thing is that's the negative way. So because of how society has been, we have warped our energies to manage the environment in which we find ourselves, right? So the manipulation, which is a big part of being, can be a big part of the negative female energy, right? Domination would be a really good example of the negative male energy. So it's understanding all of those and how that is manifesting itself in our lives and how we are embodying it, whether the positive or the negative of that too. Because I'm sure that dark goddess could be also terribly destructive without creating space for anything new to come in.
It could just be, I killed all the animals and burned the village down.
Right? Yes, but I was really, really pissed.
So there.
Yes, exactly. So yes, and I know we've seen that. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining me. This was wonderful. We're going to post this and let's see what happens. Let's see where we go from here, right? We'll come back.
Oh man. Yeah, 85% Tanya. See how we do. 100% Christine.
You know what? That's over 100% together.
That's almost 200%.
Right?
That's pretty darn good.
I know. So some may say that's too much, but I think it's just right.
Come on. It's never too much.
So, all right, cool.
It's never enough. All right, friend. Well,
hold on. All right. Talk to you soon. Wait.
Pasta.